You're here today because you have a complicated relationship with cannabis and you've got an ADHD nervous system. Most people on this planet do not experience reality like we do. The way that we perceive and interpret data through our senses, the way that our neurochemistry works and how it affects motivation and focus is very, very different. And cannabis, for me, for the last 25 years, has been like one of those complicated relationships. On again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again. You probably have had some version of this yourself. Maybe are you even thinking to yourself right now, should I just quit? Should I just get rid of cannabis? Or can I have a healthy relationship with it? Now look, I'm not here to answer that question for you, but I want to share with you my experience with cannabis. I want to give you everything that I've learned about it. We can talk about neurochemistry. We're going to talk about the mental and emotional effects and aspects and even benefits of it. And we're also going to talk about the spiritual and energetic essence of cannabis. So stick with me today and we're going to just dive into it. We're going to talk everything that comes up about neurodivergence and Mary Jane. First of all, who am I? Well, my name is Christopher Armstrong, and I am the headmaster of the Mutant Academy. I started the Mutant Academy in order to create a place where people like you and me could come together and start to update our software and learn the real operating instructions, get a better player's guide for the neurodivergent mind, because what we've been taught in school was never accurate for us. We have always been forced into a world that doesn't actually fit us, that was never designed for us, and it's time for us to change that. And one of the biggest and most powerful and hot topics for me and my clients and the people that I work with is drugs, is especially cannabis, because now cannabis is so readily available. Even here where I'm at in Egypt, all you got to do is know the right person or just go to the beach at certain spots and you'll easily find cannabis to smoke. Cannabis is an ancient medicine, a plant that contains wisdom and intelligence, and it does have benefits for the ADHD nervous system. And everything that we put into our body, especially with the desire to soothe, regulate, feel better, it comes with a price. So first off, let's talk a little bit about why the relationship with ADHD and cannabis is so strong. Why is there such a dependency? I mean, I started smoking when I was 16, and I would say for the first 10 years, I had a pretty dependent relationship with cannabis. It wasn't until I got married and lived full-time with a woman who did not smoke that I actually started to put it away. There were several years that I didn't use cannabis, and then it came back. And then I would have this pain because I would smoke for a while, I would love it, and then eventually I would feel the effects on my body, I would feel the effects on my lungs, I would feel the dependency coming back on, and then I would push it away. And it was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And right now, I'm actually a little bit in that right now. It's a curious space to be because I know how to control my consumption of cannabis, and I still am a human with an ADHD nervous system, and there are definite challenges to it. So number one, why is it that we are so drawn to cannabis? Well, because it helps us to regulate our nervous system. Well, maybe. We have lower levels of baseline dopamine. Dopamine is necessary for rewards, focus, motivation, and it is a chemical that, compared to neurotypical people, we always have lower baseline levels, which means that we are going to seek out activities and substances that raise our dopamine levels. That's your scrolling, self-pleasure, addictive foods, highly palatable foods. That's your alcohol, your cigarettes, all of those things. And so in the process of seeking those out, we raise our dopamine levels, but it is temporary. It's not something that makes a long-term lasting effect. And so that's why smoking once is great, but then there's always this desire for more. It also gives us a sense of relief. And that's an important thing for a nervous system that is very sensitive. We are more sensitive. We filter less data from our external world. That's why right now I can hear the birds crowing, the motorcycle in the background, the kids playing, the goats. Like, there's all this data coming in, and unless I'm very conscious about how to focus, that data can easily distract me. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's an evolutionary advantage for an environment that we don't live in, that we didn't grow up in. It's an evolutionary environmental adaptation for living in the wild, for being a hunter, for being a gatherer, for being a nomadic tribal human. And that's not the world that we live in anymore. If you want to learn more about that, you can go check out a video where I shared a little bit about my journey learning about this idea of hunters and gatherers and the neurodivergent nervous system. So we get a lot of data coming in, and that can be overwhelming. That overwhelm can turn into long-term stress. The stress is cortisol and adrenaline, and we often get stuck in a sympathetic nervous system, which is where our nerves, our body says we are potentially in danger and we need to stay in a very active state so that we can navigate that danger. Now, you and I both know that the dangers that we face on a day-to-day basis are not like that which we would have experienced in living in the wild or in, as a hunter or a gatherer. And so we're not facing wild animals. We're not facing, death every turn. We're dealing with subtle, long, burning, emotional stressors. Financial stressors, relationship stressors, things at work. Are people judging me? Am I doing well enough? This is also heightened for the emotional system for ADHD because we are more sensitive to rejection. Ever since we were young, we didn't fit in. We didn't have a nervous system that was like everyone else. And whether someone diagnosed you and knew it or not, we were often told to be quiet, or you're too much, or sit still, or whatever it was for you. You have had thousands and thousands of micro traumas that have stacked up in your nervous system over time, and so that affects the way that we are. We can be constantly on guard. We can be constantly worried about what other people are thinking, and so cannabis can just ease that, slow that, soften that. That's why a lot of people who have social anxiety, very common for neurodivergent nervous systems, express that they get relief with cannabis because they're able to have social engagements, to interact with other people and feel much more calm about it. We have issues with racing thoughts, and cannabis can slow that down. Maybe. For me, it makes my thoughts much more rapid, much more intense, but I'll get to that in a minute. Other people also share that they have benefits for sleep, that's the only time that they can actually effectively get to sleep is when they smoke cannabis, and it slows their nervous system down enough to where they fall asleep. Now look, there's nothing wrong with any of those uses. It really comes down to, and I can't remember exactly who said it, but there's a beautiful quote, which is, the poison is in the dose, okay? This basically states that there's nothing wrong with the substance itself. It's the quantity and potentially the frequency of the dosage of the substance that causes the problem. So the problem is not using cannabis to go to sleep. The problem is using cannabis every night to go to sleep and then not being able to effectively rest without the substance. Okay, it's not using cannabis to go and have fun at a party and to feel calm and able to connect and engage with other people. That's a beautiful thing. And we need connection. We need community. But to use cannabis every single time that you go out, that is the problem. To be highly dependent on it is the challenge. So, okay, the list of reasons why we might use cannabis can be much, much longer than this. And actually, I would love it if you comment below and tell me why you use cannabis in your life and how it has benefited you. But let's talk about this. Cannabis does affect us on we do have cannabinoid receptors, right? So we have in the brain and in the body cannabis receptors. So we actually are evolved to receive that medicine. And it does have an effect on us that's like a lock and a key kind of a mechanism, which shows that there is, there is a relationship. The relationship with cannabis and humans probably has been going on for longer than we have written records. The challenge is that what is the quality relationship? I've had relationship partners that were really good for me, and I've had ones that were horrible for me. So it's not about that. People will justify and say, yeah, but we have cannabinoid receptors, and so therefore cannabis is good for us. Maybe, right? We also have nicotine receptors. Nicotine can be very good, and nicotine can be something that you become a slave to. So where I'm at right now in my life with cannabis is that I took 2 years off of it. I actually programmed myself through hypnotherapy to become a non-smoker. So then I just didn't smoke. And then I went on a very powerful journey up Moses Mountain, not far away from here in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. And I had a very powerful experience. And when I came down from that, I felt open and curious about cannabis. It wasn't a classical addiction, dependency, need, craving. It was more like a curiosity. And so I decided, knowing that I have the hypnotherapy tools to reprogram myself back into a non-smoker, I decided to engage in and use cannabis. So I smoked maybe 2 times and found it really interesting how it changed my thought patterns, how I started to express more clearly, how I started to express a lot of the weirder stuff that frankly I've been censoring myself with here on YouTube and other social platforms. And so I found a lot of benefit from it. But I had a burnout episode. My body was stressed, I was overworked, I was tired, I wasn't resting well, and smoking that cannabis agitated my lungs, messed up my respiratory system, and I ended up going into an overall complete collapse because it was too much for me. So then I took a break from it. And then I decided to come back to it and try it. And I found the benefits. But then now I'm sitting here going, why? Okay, I'm getting the benefits, but how can I get those things without the cannabis, right? And I think that's the most important question for us to ask, because it's not using cannabis as bad or wrong or evil or shameful. It is providing you with some sort of benefits. So what are those benefits, and can I get those benefits somewhere else? So benefits for me have been a shift in it's the classic creativity method, right? It's the cannabis makes me more creative. For me, it allows a softening of the inner critic so that I can speak more freely and more weirdly. It allows me to I become much more talkative. And so I feel the fear of being judged by others reduces dramatically. And so then I find myself engaging and sharing conversations with people in a very fun and interesting way. I did that the other day when I was at the sauna. I ended up talking with a couple of younger guys from Cairo. They were hooked on every single word that I was speaking. And I had so much fun. But then I'm thinking, well, okay, those are great benefits, but why do I need the cannabis for that? And can I get that without it? That's actually why I'm doing this experiment where I'm just getting on camera and I'm sharing and I'm filming. And I'm doing my best not to censor and film. I'm being aware of the structure and the content and the timing, because I know that YouTube and you, like me, we all have nervous systems and attention systems that are, we get hooked to certain things. Certain content is very consumable and certain stuff is not. So I recognize that this may or may not be your cup of tea right now, because, it is if you're watching this, but because I haven't been hyper crafting this. But the thing is I keep getting stuck in this fear that if I speak and it's not perfectly crafted and packaged, then people aren't going to consume it. So I'm actively right now practicing what cannabis was giving me earlier. So I'm choosing to speak differently and just saying, fuck it. My goal is to post a video a day. I don't have a time length or a timeline. I'm just sharing my experience. So, okay, so if I go, well, cool, I can see why I was using cannabis. I understand the benefits, but now I'm feeling the costs, right? I was doing some breathing exercises earlier today and I could feel the tightness in my lungs. I'm going scuba diving today and I want to breathe efficiently. It greatly affects the quality of my dive. I like free diving, and to be able to hold my breath longer allows me to explore the reefs much more intimately. And when I'm smoking, I can feel the tightness, my lung capacity shrinks, and it affects CO2 tolerance, right? It's not good for our lungs. I mean, there are debates about this, and look, poof, welcome, drop your comments. I'd love to hear, because I've had scuba divers and free divers tell me that smoking actually makes them a better diver. I'm not convinced yet, and maybe that's my own limiting belief. Maybe my belief that it's bad for you is actually making it bad. I don't know, but I'll tell you that my body does not feel like it likes it. And so I'd rather honor my body, and that's why I'm choosing to reduce or eliminate consumption. So, okay, I've identified why I don't want to do it. I've identified the costs. I've identified the benefits. How can I get those benefits somewhere else? Well, earlier today, before this video, I followed a breathwork session that I have online. If you're interested in some breath work, this is a great video that you can check out. Really, really good way for you to get in touch with your inner power, because, you know, smoking most of the time is, for a lot of people, is the only time that they ever actually take deep breaths in their life. So I choose to be the drug, to be my own drug supply, and then I did some deep breathing. And then I did a CO2 tolerance breath hold. This is something I learned from free divers, where I just did a slow, deep, relaxed breathing. I got my nervous system to a very relaxed state, and then I held my breath full, and I ended up going as long as I could, and I got 3 minutes today, which was awesome. It was so good. I'm so grateful for that. So, okay, well, how can I get the benefits of the cannabis without the cannabis? It's through breathing techniques. It's through external accountability, telling a friend that I'm going to meet him somewhere and just going out. My partner has a lot of friends, and they're interesting people, and it's a great place for me to learn how to speak Arabic. So I tell my partner, I say, hey, you know, can we meet some of your friends or your cousin later today? Then all of a sudden I have this social accountability that gets me out into a social environment. I go to social environments where I feel comfortable engaging with people, at the sauna, ecstatic dance, scuba diving, places where I can nerd out and nobody judges me. It's not like I'm having a nerdy conversation at Thanksgiving or something like that. So I can get all these benefits from the substance without having to use the substance itself. Will I completely eliminate cannabis from my diet, from my life? I don't know. I don't have a clear answer for that right now. Is it beneficial? To a degree, but there are costs. And then can I replace it with something else that already exists within me? Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing was, yesterday, I was having a really difficult time focusing. You've probably had this happen too. I was feeling frustrated. I was self-judging. I was self-shaming. I was going through this whole fucking spiral that is so common for us. And I felt the craving. I really wanted a relief. I wanted an escape. And because I had used cannabis a few days before, it was already fresh in my system. My ego and my nervous system were like, yes, we know how to get relief. I decided to go swimming. I went to a beach where there's great free diving there. And also there's a lot of people smoking weed. And there were 2 times when I smelled and saw people smoking cannabis, and I really wanted to take some. But I didn't, because 1, I didn't want to smoke before diving. Okay, cool. And then 2, I had a date last night with my partner, and I really wanted to be present. I didn't want her to feel the intoxicated version of me. I wanted her to feel the calm, clear version of me. I wanted her to have the sober version of me. I wanted to be clear and present with her. And so I chose not to. I used to have cannabis in my home, but a week ago, I took that jar of cannabis and I gave it to my partner. And I said, look, I can see that I'm using this too much. So take this. I don't want to have it in my house, because if it's in my house, if my environment has easy access to cannabis, I'll use it like that. And so I use environmental design. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, great tips on how to organize your environment, because if your environment is set up for your addiction or for your bad habit, you will really engage in it so easily, because willpower is like a muscle. You can train it, you can build it, and it also gets exhausted. We run out. So I had no cannabis in my environment, which means it's easier for me to not, the friction in the process of getting high is high. So That means that it's not easy. That means that it's not that I can't get high. I mean, I could have smoked with people at the beach, but then I have to go ask them. I have to go through the discomfort of saying, hey, I don't know you, but can I get some of that weed? Or hey, where do you get weed from? And I didn't want to do that. That's not the person I wanted to be yesterday. And so I didn't smoke. Now, this environmental design is a great method for helping you if you do want to cut this out of your life, or at least greatly reduce it. Look, there's no judgment about whether cannabis supports you in functioning or not. But I highly encourage you to get clear on what is the benefit, what are the costs, what's the price that you pay in order to smoke and to get those benefits, and identify where can you get those benefits somewhere else in your life. Because the last piece that I want to share before I wrap this up, because I'm sure I could talk about this for hours, and in fact, if this is something that you would want to talk about for hours, if you'd be interested in live video or maybe an online call, webinar, dialogue about this, about addiction, about substances, please let me know because I'd love to share that with you. Cannabis, like any plant, like any being, anything, especially any sacred special plant medicine, has a spirit. Just like ayahuasca has a spirit, just like mushrooms has a spirit, just like anything does. I mean, trees and dogs and humans, we all have a spirit. And the spirit of cannabis is powerful. It is healing. It is very feminine. It is very yin. It is very soothing, relaxing. It brings us into a lower state, a calmer state for most of us. Not for me. It actually gets me very, very active, very mental, and very stimulated, but allows me to have that creative flow without filtering. There's 222 on the timer when I said that. Sorry, that was an old habit of seeing repeating numbers. 2222 on the timer. But the spirit, though it benefits us, though it gives us something, if you've ever read books from Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan, and the series of books about Don Juan, there's a lot of discussion about the spiritual entities or the spirit of substances like mushrooms and datura, Jimson weed, like all of these very powerful psychedelics. And he says that they can be allies, but the ally always wants something in return. It will give you its power, its gifts, but it wants attention. It wants you to smoke it. It wants you to use it. It wants your time, your energy, your presence, your attention, your awareness, your intention. And so my experience was with cannabis that, what did a friend tell me one time? She's a greedy bitch of a woman. And I don't mean that to be negative about women, but she is a feminine essence. It is a more feminine, energetic plant. And she wants your energy. That's why so many people smoke, not only just every day, but multiple times a day, because she feeds off of you smoking her. And so there is a price. There are people that walk around in a perpetual cloud of cannabis. And I remember speaking to a shaman, and that shaman told me that when the shaman has foreigners come in who are smoking a lot of cannabis, he can see this energetic cloud and an attachment of that cloud just draining energy from that person. Similar things can happen with nicotine and cigarette smoke, but this is just important to recognize that you are paying with every inhale, with every puff, with every joint, with every bong rip. You are paying with your life force, your energy, and your attention. So I'm going to leave it at that. There is no wrong thing about smoking cannabis. There's nothing bad about it, but it does have costs and benefits, just like everything in life. There's two sides to that coin, and I feel it's very important for us with ADHD nervous systems to make clear, conscious decisions and then set up our environment, our social circles, and our mind, mental, and emotional state in order to support us, whether we want to be a non-smoker, a casual, infrequent smoker, a heavy smoker, or if we choose to, because again, it is a choice, even if it's an unconscious one, to become a fully dependent smoker. Whatever we do, let's bring some conscious awareness to it and make that a choice that supports us, because cannabis can be very supportive for our nervous systems, and it can dominate and control us, because addictive tendencies with ADHD they're higher. They're just higher. And there's a lot of reasons why. So I'm grateful for you tuning into this. If you're looking for more like this, please comment, please share with somebody who could use this. And of course, hit the button and subscribe, because there's beneficial info for you here on this channel. See you all soon in the Mutant Academy. And we've got some really awesome group coaching programs coming up soon. I'm very excited to help support you with that. Stick around and get on our email newsletter if that's something that would support you.